Ever been confused by app registrations, enterprise apps and service principles? It took me hours to figure out these differences, but don't worry because I'm going to break it down for you in the simplest way possible, and it starts right now. Hi, I'm Lionel, your MCT and MVP. This video is part of our Azure OpenID playlist. I'm making this video because I found it really challenging to understand the difference between app registrations, enterprise applications and service principles from the Microsoft documentation. Since I often deal with these topics with my customers, I want to share what I've learned to help as many people as possible. Before diving into the Azure specifics, let's first grasp the basics of OAuth 2.0 and OpenID Connect, which is built on top of it. OAuth 2.0 allows the client application to act on your behalf with limited access, while OpenID Connect ensures that the user is who they claim to be. So OAuth for authorization and OpenID for authentication. Here is a simple example. Imagine you are accessing a resource on an Azure server using a client application like a front-end or a mobile app. Instead of directly logging in with your username and password into the client, we want the client to perform actions on your behalf without having direct access to your credentials. We want to be passwordless. The client application sends you to the authorization server like Microsoft Entra ID with its client ID and a list of permissions or scopes it needs. The authorization server prompts you to authenticate. This step could involve redirecting you to a login page where you use an existing session or an authentication method. Once authenticated, OAuth 2.0 comes into play as you are asked to grant consent for the requested permissions. If you grant consent, the authorization server sends an authorization code back to the client application. This code is temporary and is used to request tokens. The client application then sends the authorization code along with its client ID to the authorization server. In return, it receives an access token and a refresh token. The client application utilizes the access token to access resources on the resource server. When the access token expires, the client application can use the refresh token to request a new access token without requiring you to re-authenticate. This process ensures that your credentials are not exposed to the client application and it only acts within the permissions you have granted. So what you really need to understand here is that with OpenID Connect, which is on top of OAuth 2.0, we ask the client to act on our behalf against a target resource. Now let's translate it into Azure terms. In Azure, we typically deal with single or multiple tenants. We register our app in our home tenant using app registration, which serves as the unique and global representation of our application. Here we specify permissions or scopes like you can encounter with Microsoft Graph. Think of app registration as the essential step for developers. It's where we create a globally unique app object in our home Azure Entra tenant and we will receive a client ID. When we create the app registration through the portal, it also creates a service principal for that application. It's the local manifestation of the global app. It's used for management, permissions, and the consent tracking we have seen before. And when it comes to enterprise apps, they provide a straightforward way to visualize the different service principles for various apps I have consented to within my multiple tenants. As you can see on this image, I have three different tenants. The app registration is defined on my home tenant, and I can see all my service principles through the enterprise apps resource. So to sum it up, app registration serves as a unique and global representation of our application and provides the client ID, while service principles are local manifestations responsible for management and consent. And finally, enterprise apps are essentially a list of these service principles. You know, these concepts aren't always the easiest to understand, especially if you are just starting out. I hope you have better understanding now. Feel free to watch this video again and again. In our next one, we'll delve into workload identity federation in Azure DevOps. You will see what we have seen today will be necessary for understanding how it works. In the meantime, don't forget to check out some other important videos I have unpicked for you. They are just a click away on the next screen or directly in the description. Take care, my friends, and I will catch you in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for dropping by my channel today. Here are some other videos that might interest you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to be informed of the weekly updates. Let's keep growing a fantastic learning community together. My goal is to assist as many people as possible on their cloud and DevOps learning journey. That's it, take care and see you next time.